In this video, let's look at how we can get multiple return values from a function by packing them, and how to pass in multiple positional arguments to a function by unpacking a collection. We'll start with the packed returns first, and we'll see that I have a function here called getCircleInfo that takes a single parameter for a radius, and it uses that to calculate the area and circumference. Now, if I wanted to return multiple values here, such as area, circumference, and pi, I would simply type in my return statement and then separate each of the values that I want to return by a comma. So here I've put in return area, circumference, and pi. And down below here, I am going to call the print function, and I am simply going to pass the getCircleInfo function in here with the radius of 5.0. And now when I run this, we'll see that I get a tuple back containing these three values. So the first element is the area, the second element is the circumference, and the third element is the pi. Now, if I actually wanted to get these individual elements back, I have to unpack the tuple. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that there. And to unpack the tuple, you simply provide enough variables for it to unpack into. So I'm going to create three variables, A, C, and P, for area, circumference, and pi. And then I'll invoke my getCircleInfo function, and I'll pass it that value of 5.0 again. And then down here, I will print A, C, and P. And if I run this, we'll see that I get the output of the same values that I got from this tuple, but you'll see that they are no longer in the parentheses or separated by commas because they are now their own individual variables. Now, if you were to only use one variable here for your function call and then print just that variable out, it will actually put the entire tuple into that one variable. So when I do this, the entire tuple gets put into the variable A. And if I try to only put 2 in and run this, I get a value error because it's saying there's too many values to unpack. It only expected 2. This is because I only provided 2 variables for it, but it's returning 3. And if I try to put too many variables in here, I get a similar error, value error, not enough values to unpack, expected 4, but only got 3. And again, this is because I provided 4 variables, but it only returned 3. Now let's look at how we can pass multiple values into a function by using a single collection. Here you'll see I have a function called calculatePyramidVolume that takes 3 parameters, length, width, and height, and it multiplies length times width times height, divides it by 3, which returns the volume of a pyramid. Right here, I have result equals calculatePyramidVolume with the values 5, 4, and 3 passed in as arguments. And when I run this, we'll see that I get the output 20. That's the volume of my pyramid. But let's say that I have collections that I want to be able to pass in here instead of the actual values. So I'm going to create some real quick. I'm going to create a list with those same values, 5, 4, and 3. I'm going to create a tuple with those values. And I'm going to create a dictionary, and we'll use the keys 1 for 5, 2 for 4, and 3 for 3. And that's kind of important to know what keys I use there because we're going to see that something a little different happens with dictionaries. So now let's just pass in my list. If I were to simply pass in my list here and run this, I'm going to get an error. It's a type error, because it says it's missing 2 required positional arguments. What's happening is this list is only being passed into this variable right here, so it's missing values for width and height. So to unpack this list so that it passes in these 3 individual values, you simply put an asterisk before it. Now when I pass this in, it's going to pass it in as if I would have put these 3 values in here instead of my list. And when I run that, we'll see that I get the output 20, just like it did when I passed in the 5, 4, and 3 directly. It's the same with tuples. So if I pass in my tuple, make sure I have my asterisk just to the left of it and run this, I'll get that same output of 20. However, if I pass in a dictionary and I have the keys 1, 2, and 3 here, when I run this, I'm going to get the output 2. And this will be the volume of a pyramid that had a length of 1, a width of 2, and a height of 3. And this is because when it unpacks a dictionary, it's unpacking the keys of that dictionary. So if you wanted to actually use the values, you would simply put in the .values method. And now this is going to return that object that contains the values 5, 4, and 3. And then this asterisk will unpack that into their individual values of 5, 4, and 3. And when I run that, we'll see that I get the correct output of 20. And just as a quick recap on the packed returns, when you return multiple values from a function, you are returning a tuple, and you can operate on that tuple just like you would any other tuple. And when you are unpacking collections using this asterisk, you are separating the values that are inside the collection into their individual elements.